Welcome everyone to our ITSM Core Features and Proven Practices Jakarta webinar. We're here today to talk about some new features in the Jakarta version. Your speakers today are Shiba Srinivasan, who's the Product Owner of Problem and Incident Management at ServiceNow. Shiba brings with her decades of experience with professional services where she helped customers implement ITSM solutions. She's going to know and share the successful strategies to realize your full potential in problem and incident management processes. My name is Ann Barnes, and I'm a Customer and Partner Experience Manager with the ITSM Business Unit at ServiceNow. I have over 15 years of experience working in ITSM, including professional services. The audience for this webinar is ServiceNow administrators, business process owners, project managers, implementation specialists, partners, and anyone else who wants to learn about new Jakarta features. Our agenda today is to review the ITSM core feature changes in Jakarta for incident and problem management, talk about the ITSM proven practices, deep dive into each of these features, go over additional resources, and provide Q&A. Few housekeeping items here. All attendees, lines are muted. During the live webinar, please use the Q&A panel to ask questions and direct it to all panelists. At the end of the session, we'll be answering those questions. You will receive a survey after the webinar. Please fill this out and help us with your feedback. If you're watching this recording, please ask questions by posting comments on the webinar page in the ITSM community. And now I'm going to turn it over to Shiba.
Thank you, Anne. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the call. What we wanted to cover today is some of the core features that are released in Jakarta, and it is part of ITSM core products, incident, problem, change management, and service level management. Now, in Jakarta, we have done a number of enhancements to the core products in Jakarta, and we are calling these enhancements, proven practices, and this comes from our implementation experience, what we have learned from our customers, our partners, our services team during all the implementations that we have done so far. Now, today, the products that we'll cover in detail is incident management and problem management, and then ITSM guided setup, which again talks about proven practices in detail. So these are the three areas we will do a deep dive into. Now these enhancements, the way we have bundled them up is in the format of a plugin, and I have listed all 4 plugins here. You have plugins for each individual product. So for any new customer, if you're new to ServiceNow and your instance is on Jakarta release, these plugins will be activated by default. So you will have all the enhancements, the feature baseline, all the features are available in your baseline version. If you're an existing customer, we really request you to, take a look at what is getting changed, take a look at the release notes, understand what is being configured as part of these plugins, and contact support to request for plugin activation. And I would highly recommend that you actually, after reading through the release notes, after understanding what is getting changed, activate the plugin in a subprod instance first, understand if there are any configurations that you would like to accept or you want to activate the plugin in first place or not. And once you have done that, you can obviously, activate the plugin in your production instance as well. With these core features and enhancements that we have made available in Jakarta, our what we really wanted to do is reduce the time to value by making these baseline improvements, and it drives consistency. So you don't have to do these configurations when you're getting ready to start with ServiceNow implementations. For existing customers, if you have done some configurations and you see that, you see the same configurations on the plugin, I will say that you can disable yours. You can take the configurations from the plugin, so that way you're more closer to the base product, and as a result, the upgrades will be much easier. So that's what we are targeting. You will see this as a consistent practice where what we are learning from the field, we will definitely are making a conscious effort to make enhancements to the baseline product with every release going forward. So that's new. With that said, let's take a look at what is getting changed in incident management. There's like a number of changes. So first of all, there is a ton of form updates that we have done. And, this is, again, based on what we see, what most of our customers implement. And I'll walk you through the demo in the instance, but you can just see it's a quick highlight of what is getting changed from a form perspective. There are a few other changes, functional changes, like, assign to is cleared when you update the assignment group. Earlier, you could have a mismatch. Now that does not happen. We have also included a new report, which is named Incident Trend by Configuration Item. And this is a report which gives you like a trend analysis of incidents, a weekly trend analysis of incidents by configuration item, wherein if you see a spike, that might be an indication for you to create a problem record to do further root cause analysis to understand what is going on if you want to do trend analysis. Now let's take a look at incident form, and I will walk you through the individual changes or features that are getting introduced in Jakarta. So first thing, I have a new form here, and you can see in the base product, the caller and short description is mandatory. So let me just type in the short description. And you'll see as I'm typing in, you have the related search results, and this kind of shows you any kind of knowledge articles, relevant knowledge articles, or catalog items as you type in the short description. This is all very contextual, and this is not new in Jakarta, but I just wanted to point out just in case you have not implemented it or you have not seen it. Now, at this point, let's see, my state is new. If I go to on hold, the first change, what we have done is we have added 2 new on hold reasons. One is awaiting change, and the other one is awaiting vendor, very commonly used. So we have made those available in the base product. If you select the on hold reason of awaiting caller, it makes the work notes it makes the additional comments mandatory, and which in turn sends a notification to the caller informing them that, we are waiting for more information from them. So I have done this configuration on every single implementation, so it only made sense that we make it available in the base product so that you don't have to configure it. So that's one. I'm going to change it back to, let's say, awaiting change. You will see that the additional comments are not mandatory anymore. Let's go back, make it new. The next on the form, the one difference that you will see is we have added the description back right below the short description, which I see, again, most of us use. If you want to provide additional information about the incident, you do need the description box. Next is the assignment group. One small change that we did is if you look up for an assignment group, you don't have the tree picker anymore. We are making the default list view, and I find it very handy because, if you have to find additional information for that assignment group, for example, short description or who the manager is, you can now actually update the list to show the relevant fields or show the relevant information. So that's one. So let me assign this to Service Desk and save this record. One small thing that I would also like to show here in this case is, let's say change the priority. Right now it is set to planning, and I want to say that it is a moderate priority issue. So I updated impact urgency. You see priority is priority is set based on impact and urgency, and none of the other fields are mandatory. So let me go save the record. Once it gets saved, also let me just assign it to David, who is a member of Service Desk Group. I'm going to save the record one more time. And let's just say that I realize that it is an issue and I'm hearing more calls, or I'm getting more calls, or I realize that it is an outage and you want to change the priority of the incident. And I changed the impact, which updated the priority, and you will see that it makes the work notes mandatory. This is, again, a very common practice where if you are changing the priority, obviously you need to provide a reason, because changing the priority also impacts your SLAs that are running against that record. So we have made it available in the base product where you change the priority. The work notes are now mandatory. So let me fill that up. Okay. Save that record one more time. Next. Let's say I want to reassign this incident to another group, and I'm going to select, in this case, software. You will see that nothing changed. That's because David is listed as a member of software group as well, so nothing changed here. But let's say if I update the group to database, it clears the assign to so that there is no mismatch when the record gets saved. So that's one change that we have done. That is, assign to is cleared when you update the assignment group, and with a condition that if the assigned to is not listed as a member of the new group, then the assigned to field gets cleared. So let me assign it to Beth. Save the record. If you scroll down, let's take a look at the related record section. We added the parent incident field. The field was always there at the database level, but it was never visible on the form. So we have made it available in the related record section and added the child incidents related list. So now you can actually do your parent-child in case of a major incident or in case of an outage if you want to have that parent-child relationship defined. So we are proposing that these are the fields that you use to define that relationship. One other thing that has changed from a form section standpoint is resolution information. If you are using Incident today, if you have not updated it yourself, this section is called closure information. But the fields that are here, resolution code, resolution notes, they were also called closure code and closure notes. But if you go through the process, this information is mandatory when you're resolving the incident. And I have changed it on a number of implementations myself. So we thought it only made sense to make the change in the baseline product where we renamed the whole section to resolution information, resolution code, resolution notes. And obviously these fields are mandatory when you're getting ready to resolve the incident. We also added affected CIs and impacted services related list to the incident record. Very similar to change record, where you could have more than one CI that is affected by the incident, and you could now actually have more than one CI link at the incident record. Impacted services, it exactly works as the change. If you have your services defined, the services is populated based on the primary configuration item on the CI record. And then you can also refresh impacted services to populate the impacted service, or you can add an impacted services yourself. So this is from a related list standpoint. One other small change that I want to show you is if you right-click today, and this was always there, that you could click on Create Request. And let's say you have an incident, and to resolve that incident, there is a need to submit a request. Let me do that here in this case. And when you click on Request, all it does is really it takes you to the catalog that you have already built. And I'm going to go and submit a hardware request in this case for the caller. Let me just order that. You can see that there is a link that is created between the incident and the request. But I'm going to go back to the incident record. Now, if you scroll down, you will see the request related list is populated. And this is just for you to track if there are any requests that were created from an incident record, and you can easily track the status of the request from the incident if needed. And you'll see that the request related list is only visible if there is a record that gets added to it. Otherwise, you won't see it. So that kind of covers all the enhancements for incident management. I think I just have to show you one more report. And here, so the report name that I mentioned was Incident Trend by Configuration Item. And it is really a weekly trend report by configuration item. And I'm going to wait for it to just open up. And it kind of shows you, a nice trend line. So if you see that there is a sudden, spike in the incidents created for a particular configuration item, that's just an indication that there is something else going on, and you might want to create a problem record to figure out, why is that, or if there is a root cause analysis that needs to be done. Wow, it is slow today. Okay. So that's the report that I was talking about. You can tweak the report obviously at this point to configure if you want it to work a little differently, but this is a report that we have made available in the base product. With that said, that is all the incident-related updates that we have made available in the baseline product. Let's take a look at problem management form. Now here, very similar to the incident record, we have done a number of form updates, and I'll again walk you through each one of them from the instance directly. There are some functional changes in terms of like UI action, when you close incidents versus resolve incidents, what is the right process and what should happen to related incidents. So we have done some enhancements in that area. So let me take you to the problem form and walk you through the changes that are introduced in the problem. And I am going to open a new problem record just in case. One thing you'll see is obviously the layout of the form is a little different. We added the business service field to the problem record, very similar to the incident record. If you want to track, how your business service is getting impacted because of the incidents or the problem records that are open. So we have done that. From a state, everything else should be very similar, other than the fact that priority is now a read-only field, and it is calculated based on the impact and urgency, very similar to how the priority calculation works. For incident, we have created the lookup rules to set the priority based on impact and urgency. Again, you can configure it to make it work for your own process, but that's just something that we have made available in the baseline product. Very similar to incidents, when you change the priority and impact, the work notes are mandatory, not on the first save, but once the record is saved at least once, any kind of a priority change will prompt you to enter work notes. We did add a major problem field, and this is where, very similar to your major incident process, if you have a process to review major problems and, understand or learn what happened, what was the outcome, any kind of lessons learned, you can definitely now do that process. We intentionally kept it very simple. It's just a checkbox. When you check the box or uncheck the major problem box, it asks you to enter the work notes just so that you can give a reason like why it is a major problem. It is as simple as that, a critical service is impacted. That's why it's a major problem, but it gives you the flexibility to do that. And if you look at the closure information, and if you try to close a major problem or resolve a major problem, it will have you fill in the review outcome and the close notes. So most of the organizations, if they have a major problem management process in place, they conduct a review for all the major problems after the fact and document any action items or any lessons learned from that process. So that's what you can actually document in review outcome. And obviously you have your close notes, which was always there, but now it is mandatory when you're trying to resolve or close a problem record. So those are all the changes on the problem record itself. And I want to show you one small change that we have done from what happens to the related incidents that are linked to a problem record. So I'm going to open an existing problem and that has like a related incident so that I can explain what the change is, if only it opens the record. Okay, so I have a list of open problems here. So let me see, I think that has a number of related incidents linked to it, yes. So what this does is really, before Jakarta, you had an UI action which is called as close incidents. And what the functionality was, if you click on that UI action, it actually looked at all the related incidents that are linked to that problem record, and any related incident that is in on-hold state with an on-hold reason of awaiting problem was directly closed without giving a caller, a chance to actually verify if the resolution worked for them or not. So we updated it where it's now called resolve incidents, and all you're really doing is, if you have a permanent fix and you want to communicate it to your end users, you can click on resolve incidents. It prompts you to put in the close notes, and once you do that and save the record, it resolves any related incidents that are in on-hold state and the on-hold reason is pending or awaiting problem. It resolves those incidents. Now, obviously, once the incident is resolved, it sends a notification to the caller, and the caller or the customer gets a chance to verify if the resolution has worked for them or not. So that's a little functional change that we did on how related incidents that are linked to a problem are resolved versus closed. So that's all the changes for problem itself. And I'm going to go to the next topic. Okay. So when we started this whole discussion, we talked about proven practices, and proven practices are nothing but what we have learned from our implementations, from partners, from customers, from services team, from field. And what we are doing is really, from an ITSM standpoint, we are collecting all the feedback, all the proven practices, and providing guidance in the base product using ITSM guided setup. And it's just a mechanism to deliver those proven practices or guide you through the process. And that's what we are doing. So if you're a new customer and you're getting ready to implement ITSM processes, the very first question, at least when I was doing implementations, and even today when you go for workshops and you're getting ready to implement every customer, one question they ask is, what is the best practice recommendation? What have you done for other customers, same, similar size, or maybe same vertical? What is it that you can suggest, and what have you seen? What are the best practices, right? So this is a question that has been asked on every single implementation. So what we are doing is really taking all those best practices and deciding whether it makes sense to make that best practice or proven practice available in the base product so that we know that it is a configuration or it is a feature that all our customers will benefit from. For sure, we make it available in the base product. If it is a feature or a configuration that we think that some of you will benefit from, we are making it available in guided setup. We are giving you guidance from a process standpoint, and we are leaving the decision with you. If it fits your organization, if it meets your requirements, you can take the proven practice and implement it. If not, obviously, you will still do your process requirements, business requirements gathering sessions to implement the process to meet your requirements, right? The only thing that we have also done is, from a guided setup standpoint, we are being very prescriptive as our customers have asked for it, and we are giving you very actionable and concise activities, concise steps that you can actually take when you're getting ready to implement your process. Now, if you're a new customer, you definitely will see, you can refer to the ITSM guided setup, understand what are some of the proven practices, what other customers have done, what we have learned from customers, all our implementations, and it gives you a good starting point before you start your workshop, right, to understand and start, instead of starting from scratch, you're starting from a baseline set of proven practices, and you do requirements gathering to find out what the delta is. For our existing customers, the way I see it is helpful is, now that you have had a process for some time, you can now go back and compare to see what is it that we are proposing as a proven practice based on, again, our experience versus what you have implemented. I know some of our customers are trying to be as close to the base product as possible. This is, again, one nice way for you to compare the processes that you have implemented versus what is getting proposed as a proven practice. So on this slide, I have, just a legend with all the terminologies, and you will hear me using these words when I use ITSM guided setup. It is purely for your reference so that you understand when I say routine, what does that mean? What does it mean versus a category versus an activity, and what is an endpoint? So that's for your reference. ITSM guided setup, if you have used it already, you will know that it was released in Helsinki. And the intent was really to guide the customers through a very structured set of activities when you're getting ready to do your implementation. So if you take incident management as an example, you had tasks like you have to set up categories, you have to set up priority, you need to set up your assignment rules. So we retired that version of the guided setup, and we are introducing a new version in Jakarta, which is very process-centric. So instead of telling you that you need to set up the priority, or you need to set up the assignment rules, or you need to set up risk assessment, we are giving you guidance like why, and if we can give you some examples, then we are giving you those examples, or just to get you to a starting point, and then obviously you can set up the risk assessment the way you want to. So that's just an example, and I'll walk you through the guided setup and show you what is getting changed. The new version of the guided setup is active by default if you're on Jakarta release. For our existing customers, I have added the plugin name and ID, so you can definitely activate the plugin to see what the new version of the ITSM guided setup looks like. You have to just make sure if you have used the existing guided setup and you have made some progress, then that progress it won't be carried over to the new one because the content is very different if you look at the older version of the guided setup versus the new version. Only other thing I will mention is that there are other guided setups being created for other products like performance analytics or ITOM, like discovery. You have guided setup for HR. So if you want to take a look at it, obviously you have every other product is creating an own version of the guided setup to help you understand with the configurations and settings. In the ITSM version of guided setup, the processes that we have covered is incident and change management. We also have core system configurations. This is where you start your implementation, your LDAP, your single sign-on, your user data load, companies, group information, assignment groups, and everything else. We just want to make sure that whenever you're loading or uploading setting this data up, we just want to ensure that you have the right attributes or right fields populated to support any other process. So CMDB, we have done the same thing. This is not configuration management process. At this point, we have really kept it simple, where all we are doing is if you're creating CI records, if you're creating business services, we want to ensure that necessary fields are populated to support incident or change or request management. So that's the idea. We will be actually expanding on the configuration management process, but in the first release, we just kept it simple because that's a very detailed process to take on. This is a very high-level overview of what I was talking about. So ITSM guided setup is my routine. Within the routine, I have individual categories. So incident management is a category, and I have an example here. So incident management is my category. You will see that it has a set of tasks or activities that helps you or guides you through the implementation. And when I say implementation, we are talking about process guidance or configuration guidance, and we tell you, what some of our customers have done when it comes to implementing incident management or change management. Now, for some of these activities, we do have a link called More Information. So that's where we give you process advice in detail, screenshots and more, and some technical guidance as well. So that's what we have from a guided setup standpoint. I talked about different products a little bit ago, and all the other products are also creating their own versions of guided setup. Now with these other products, admin is not the only administrator role. You do have your HR admins, your PA admins, or your CMDB admins. So if obviously HR admins, the configurations can be done by the HR admin. So what we have done is we have made an enhancement where you can assign a guided setup to your other admin roles, and they have access to view and run the guided setup for any kind of configurations. And this was a request from the other teams as well. So for example, ITOM team has their own discovery guided setup, and that for that, if you have a CMDB admin, then obviously you can actually assign that guided setup to a CMDB admin, and they can run through the configuration. So that's just an enhancement that was made available in Jakarta. So let me go to the instance, and I'll show you how the guided setup looks like. I am right now logged in as a system administrator, and you'll see I just typed in ITSM. It'll show you the ITSM guided setup. And this is, so ITSM guided setup is my routine, and you will see here, this is where I was talking about you have core system configuration activities. If you're an existing customer, you have already obviously done these configurations, but for new customers, this is very handy where, it gives you instructions on how to set up or LDAP integration. So right now it's actually, you can see that the LDAP integration here. It's all grayed out, and it tells you that you can unlock it by activating the plugins. You can click here. It takes you directly to the plugin. You activate the plugin, and then you can actually go and follow these steps to configure LDAP or configure SSO. If you take a look at the email properties, and if you click on configure here, it takes you to the email configuration properties page, and you can configure the properties for email inbound and outbound. On the right-hand side, you see help, and this is embedded help. Again, it is very contextual, so this help is shown based on the screen that you're on. In this case, you're on email properties, so it gives you a very high-level overview of, what is it that has to be done from a configuration standpoint, but then here you have related properties or related information, and it takes you to the doc site, and you have direct links to take a look at necessary help here. So I'm going to go back to the guided setup and show you what we have done from a process standpoint. So this is core configuration setup, which is very task-based. You see companies and users. Again, we are just making sure from a core data standpoint or foundation data, we just want to make sure that you have the right fields populated when you're getting ready to do your implementation. CMDB, we do the same thing. We just want to make sure that if you're loading your CIs, and let's say you don't have discovery to start with, that's not the first project that you are undertaking, then when you load your CIs, then we want to make sure that you have the right attributes populated for the CIs so that other processes are supported. Now, let's take a look at change management as a process, right? Let me get started here. So this is my category, very high overview of what the change management process is. And if you take a look at the tasks, it is as if I am walking you through the process, right? Like you create a change request. As soon as you document your change, you want to do risk assessment. And then obviously you do want to do conflict detection. What the approval process is, what is the security around change management, who should be able to update the record versus who, at what point the record cannot be updated. So there are a lot of details for each of these activities that we have defined. And at this point in Jakarta, we are giving guidance to you. So let's take an example of creating a change request. You see you can add notes, and all this really does is, as you're configuring it, you can add notes to it. Now, you have more information page. This is where we are documenting, either you will find screenshots or process guidance and some technical guidance as well. So this is the case where you have the change request form, the default form that comes in the base product, and then none of the fields are mandatory. Very common question, when you're getting ready to submit a change request for the approval process, what are the fields that should be mandatory? So we know that, these are all the fields that we make mandatory when you're ready to submit a change request. So these are all the fields that should be filled in before you submit the change request for approval. And then we have some additional technical details for you to tell you that, what are some of those configurations? How do you make those fields mandatory, whether it's a UI policy versus a client script? So a little bit of a technical guidance to guide you through some of the best practices. And that is it. And if you actually click on configure, it will show you the change form. And very similarly here, you will see that the embedded help is now updated, and it shows you the related information, how to design a form layout or anything related to the change management. So let me go back to that setup. In this case, you will see just because I was on the more information page, it took me back to the more information page, and obviously you have the breadcrumbs to go back. So that's an example here. You'll see accept best practices, and if you will see, in this case, when I do accept best practices, the place on hold is checked automatically. And if you scroll down for placing a change request and on hold, we have done or made some configurations in the base product and I don't think that you have to make further configurations to make that help. So it works well in the base product. So you don't have to do any configurations to make that work right. Now, from a review and authorize standpoint, I know the approval, we have again made enhancements to the approval workflow, but then there are a few other enhancements that we are proposing that at least we have seen our customers do. And so the way we are looking at guided setup is, if most of my customers take the proven practices that I'm proposing, then it's a very good indication for me to go and make that available in the base product. So it becomes a feedback mechanism for the product team as well to make improvements to the baseline product. So that's our expectation. We are expecting to use the guided setup during our implementation to make sure everyone is aligned, whether it's a partner, whether it's our services team. This becomes like a starting point for any of our implementations, and then you do the consulting for the Delta, and if you see that there is need to configure, you obviously will do some configurations, customizations to meet your business process requirements. For our existing customers, the way I see it helping you at this point is really, you have a process defined. You can just go back and compare to see what everyone else has done versus what the process that you have configured today. So this is all I had to cover from the core features standpoint for Jakarta. And do you want to cover the resources?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sheba. So we have some resources listed out for you to get further information. There's a couple of links on the Jakarta ITSM release notes, as well as the Jakarta complete release notes. We will locate this presentation along with the recording on the ITSM Guides community. And there's also a live Q&A session that we'll be going through. On the community, there's also blogs and discussions around these topics. We just want to point out that we're going to have some additional Jakarta webinars coming up. August 9th, we'll have continual service improvement, which includes benchmarks, surveys, and assessments. On August 23rd, we've got service level management, and on September 6th, service catalog. And there's links to the community on where you can register for these webinars. Okay, so in the appendix of the document that we will put on the community, there's more detail on each of the items that Sheba has gone through. And you're welcome to take a look at those items, and it goes through everything in much more detail. So I believe that we're at the end of our presentation now. I am going to now take any questions and answers that anyone